you for tuning in to the West Texas Slant. My name is Caleb Knott, the editor for Dusty and the West Texas Slant. We experienced some minor technical difficulties with the audio for about the first 9 minutes, so we're just going to jump right into the conversation Mel and Dusty were having. I apologize for any inconvenience, and enjoy the episode.
I'm honored to be your guest today on West Texas Net.
Well, I certainly do. Thank you. And I've been a follower of yours on your podcasts, and that's where I try to take notes and learn. But it's a little bit different being on this side. I think it's easier on the other side. But is that how you see it? Or is it easier for you to be the interviewer?
Good question. At the beginning, I would say being a host was quite easy. Being a receiver, now that I've done a few podcasts on the other end, I find that the challenge. When I started my podcast, it was to tell your story to inspire. So I really wanted to hear everyone's story and not tell mine.
Okay.
So that's how it really kind of inspired me is I love hearing the trajectory of life and the pursuit of, success from everyone else to learn that to find out who I am, my identity in this. It domino affected differently when I became a host of a podcast than I could ever imagine. Now I am branching out to tell my story through other podcasts or allow some of that dialogue to come into one of my podcast episodes. So people can relate. The listeners or the readers and stuff can relate that I'm not sitting behind the mic as a know-it-all.
Wow.
So I don't do a lot of in-person like you, but I do remote, and it's amazing.
I haven't tried it that way.
It just happens. You go for the yes. If you get the no, it's no, not right now for a guest. And luckily, in the year that I've been doing it, I haven't got a single no.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was a vision of mine since COVID. So 2020, when the world kind of just stopped turning and you began to isolate yourself, I need enough interaction to fill up my tank. And I didn't know anyone in the area. I worked, I took care of my kids. And so I was like, this podcast that I want to do is going to lead to my tribe.
Gotcha.
And so, like me and you, being Christian, that would not have happened had I not finally said, yes, I'll do the podcast. And there's a saying that when you do a project in life, whatever it is, you'll have about 100 super fans. That's it. Out of those super fans, you have maybe 10 or so that actually communicate with you, give you good feedback, be honest and hold yourself accountable. And that's kind of how I met Christian. With his podcast, he reached out to me and he showed me a lot of things I need to improve on nicely. And to continue to do it, even with anxiety or like kids in the house, improvise with technology. I never played with technology like I do running a podcast, including edit. So I edit all my material. I do.
Okay. That's impressive.
I set up my own schedule. I meet the guest ahead of time for like 15 minutes before they schedule the interview. And it just really felt more organized, but the conversation was still organic because they're telling their story to inspire and deepen and grow. So the definition of it never stops.
Right.
So if we're touching someone today with my story, one person, it's considered a success.
Well, that's incredible. And that's what got me into the podcasting bug. It's we have so many wonderful people in West Texas, and they're all over. But here, there's a lot of people that go humbly throughout their day, and they don't go, "Hey, look at me! I've accomplished this or I've accomplished that." It's one of those things that you go, "Oh, so what do you do?" "Well, I'm a millionaire." "You become a millionaire," and then all of a sudden you get their story, and you find out that they've done a lot of work helping people, and I think those are the people that we need to showcase, and that's one of the reasons why I was trying to get you on board so we could do that. Because what got you started into HR and in safety?
Well, I have been a part of the oil and gas industry for about 20 years.
Okay.
And in that, I kind of always shadowed or succeeded in customer service, logistics, people-centric things. And when the world stopped moving around during 2020, I landed in a role that finally gave me an HR title. For that, I was doing a lot of the HR work without that title. Recruiting, onboarding, policies and discipline. I've been doing that for years, but no one would give me the title of HR. It was always like personnel, or office manager, or executive administration stuff. So they gave me my first big break. And the mentor there was the general manager who absolutely encouraged me every step of the way in HR, going back to school at 37 years old. And I graduate next spring.
That's
Yeah.
astounding.
Blink of an eye, right? Like, I remember weighing the pros and cons of going back to school at 37 with 2 more children at home or younger, work full time, heavily involved in the PV Sherm board and community there. I was just like, why? Like, why is it such a difficult decision to make? And my mentor, the general manager, says, because you don't see the potential that we see. And I was like, so when we do lack faith in our own talent or anything like that, we need to listen to the peanut gallery, what they witness in us, the skill sets that they see us thriving in, versus always just nitpicking and everything that we're doing wrong. And so that kind of just also helped me flip the switch to Unplug with Mel as a podcast, because why not? Why not? It's something that fills my tank, and I put those messages out there for at least one reader to listen to it and go, my God, I needed to hear that episode today. You never know what people are going through.
That's true.
You never know. The success story didn't always look like an easy success. Climbing that mountain, down they go. Climb that mountain a little bit more, down they go. No one truly gets to that mountaintop any other way.
Right.
And I was like, okay, so, no, I can do a podcast, and there's going to be people out there that enjoy it. I'm not looking for fame or going viral. I want to hear that story.
I do too.
I want to know where you came from, what made the grit, the perseverance happen. And I love that they're willing to tell me that behind the mic, And I'm honored to tell you part of me today, because not a lot of people ask a podcaster to do that. They just assume that they've already done it, or that they'll do it on their own without someone actually asking me the question of how I got involved in HR. And I did that job for 4 years before I took on the role that I currently have. And it is a dual role. It's HR and safety. And safety and HR can work well together, regardless if one person's doing the whole role or you have a team of it. Safety will always talk to HR, and HR will always talk to safety.
Absolutely.
It's just, that's the way it is. But I love what I do because it's still all about the people.
It is about the people.
All about the people.
And even in safety with me, because that's what I've spent the last 25 years in. The first 25, I was the worker guy. But in safety, I didn't really want to go in because I wasn't trained in it or anything else. But then the vice president that I had said, it's an opportunity to start caring about the people. And that's what turned me on to it. And I think in every company I've ever worked with, I work hand in hand with HR. So do you still work with that manager?
No, he retired, and that began my journey to leave that current company into greener pastures or a different skill set that I needed to learn or manage. I miss him daily, because not only was he the general manager of the company, but there was such a dialogue between the two of us, like going back to school, being part of SHRM, conferences and training, that I would just pick his brain even more and make sure I'm on the right path for alignment and accountability to benefit the employer. I don't do all of that extra stuff. I don't add it all to my plate to just do it half, subpar. I go all in.
Right.
And so same thing with the podcast. I knew if I was going to start that podcast, I had to go all in and not make excuses for it. And I've learned so much in that because I got, and everything that you do, you can get a little discouraged. And I was like, okay, I'm not getting enough viewers, or, I don't know if anyone's actually watching it and learning it because feedback. And then I realized I don't really care. I'm doing this for them to find a safe outlet to tell their story. And then they become instant connections in my tribe because now I know them and they know me, and that vibe and that generosity uh, really transpired with that podcast. And like episode 28.
Wow.
And it's not a big number for a year, but it's at least one or two a month. Yeah, two a month. And the follow-up, the feedback from the guests is, we'll do it again, Mel. We loved it. And that's important to me because when you sit in a chair like this or whatever, you're spewing stuff out and someone's listening to it all. That's what needs to happen. Someone's listening to them and seeing where they started at and where they're at now. And it's not an HR podcast or a safety podcast. It's a people podcast.
Right.
It's their story. Now, if they want to talk about the success in their career or volunteer work, so be it. But I love it when they let loose and they start telling me about them, what they've been through and how they got out of it. One particular one was a CEO company that was launching, and 3 days before he was supposed to get the approval, funding fell through. And I was like, wow, what did you do with that? He was like, reached out to my network, and all of them gave me a lot of no's, wouldn't bail me out. And so it made me push to the grind and figure it out myself. And they still closed on the deal, and they're still in business today, 42, 43 years. And he's officially retiring as well. And I was just 3 days before this big merge, he didn't quit. He didn't just say, okay, not meant to be. He figured out another solution. And I put that down on my notebook, like, hey, as long as you don't quit, you will be successful. When you quit, that's when you become a failure. So who cares if this podcast didn't get enough viewers or whatever? Did it?
That's
I
right.
had a guest. They spilled their guts out. We've had grief. We've had moms. We've had executives. And every bit of their story has taught me something.
And that's the truth. And where did you come from originally to arrive here?
Great question. So I'm a small girl in Texas, so I'm very familiar with Texas law. Everyone kind of knew who we were. It was a challenge living in your hometown, and I wasn't flourishing. And I brushed off my resume, had someone look it over, and they gave me a headhunter's name and an email, and I forwarded it over to her. Within a day, she called me for some interviews out here in Midland, Texas. Was I interested? And I said, sure. So I drove my old beat up car. I felt like a country song and got out here to interview. And because I needed to get back to my kids and my other job back home, I turned and burned and started headed back. I get back in San Antonio, and that first interview that I did, they offered me a job. And that's when I kind of start. And I need to go back into the drug test. So I was like, oh. And I didn't really think I was going to get the job. I find out today. So I drove all the way almost home. I'm going to be back Friday to take the drug test and probably start Monday. I'm like, sure, let's make that work. And I said, okay, before I quit my current job, I need the job offer in my email.
Oh.
And I waited on the side of the road, San Antonio, Texas, for that job offer letter to come in my email. And it was going to quadruple my salary as a single mom.
Man.
So there was no hesitation to digitally sign that sucker, get the rest of the way home, and tell my boss, sorry, but today's my last day. It was probably the first job I ever had that I didn't do like a 2-week notice. Was not going to pass this up.
Right.
I had to go home and break the news to the kids. And like,
Which one was a bigger shock to, your
they were younger.
employer or your kids?
I think my ex-employer, when I showed the proof of the job offer, he was like, there's no way we can make that work for you. So get out of here. Like, they were so supportive of it, because they were honest too. Like, they couldn't fight for me in that capacity of a salary because it was going to be a salary job, not an hourly job. Full benefits. And my kids were younger. They were like 5 and 2 when when I came home and said, I know we just moved into this house. I know we've had a lot of change and disruption. Looks like we're moving again, and it's a further job, further away. So you're going to stay 3 weeks or so with one of my best friends, and then I'm going to come down and get you guys. We're going to have a house. We lived in an RV at the time. We actually then moved to a rental home, but it was,
It's a house.
it was a house. But now we're going to move somewhere bigger and better and more sustainable. And they were just like, okay, Mom. Back home, we were hit by Hurricane Harvey a month after we moved in. The day that we moved in was, this is a trigger warning, but I received domestic violence from my ex-husband. Because I was thriving and changing and doing, some insecurities happened with him, and he put me in the hospital. At that point, I knew I was ready to get out of Dodge.
Yeah.
I was ready to reinvent myself. So Midland, Texas began to be the renovation of Mel Mosier, and it's been going on. Into 2018, I moved, and so 2025 April, I'll be here 8 years, 6, 7 years. Ask for the court, don't judge me in HR.
That's me.
Yeah, and I don't look back. At that very moment that I made that decision that I was going to improve my life and advocate for me, myself, and I, the world no longer just tilted into the negative, tilted back to, oh, this girl's powerful.
Absolutely. And I'm certain that there's a lot of ladies out there that need to hear that.
Yeah, it was a mindset shift. I did a lot of odd jobs before I got more heavily involved in HR just to pay the bills.
Right.
And I spent 33 years of my life just doing that, getting by, barely thriving. And it also gave me kind of a victim mentality that all this stuff was happening because of them, not me. But when I looked in the mirror of 2017, I was about to go in for my final surgery of cervical cancer. My babies were young, recent divorce, and I looked in that mirror and I didn't recognize who that girl was, and I was angry at her. That's really me because I set the bar with perfectionism and I'm capable of all things to I am on every services out there on the government, food on the table, benefits, stuff like that. And I wasn't proud of anything career-wise or internal Mel. The only thing I was grateful for was my younger kids. Like they're looking up to me, they're watching me, and I am pouring from that empty cup. There's nothing there to give, and it showed. It showed in my finances. It showed with my parenting. It showed up with my employers and my coworkers. So moving into HR, I think it gave me an edge up because people go through things behind closed doors, or just they never become vulnerable because they're taught to shake it off.
Right.
Leave it at the door. Don't bring it to work. But now, I'll give an example. When I was in HR, there was an employee that came in and alerted HR, myself, that she was being stalked. She was scared for her life. Immediately, the leadership was like, well, I don't know what we can offer. I was like, we're going to make a police report. We're going to post his photo around and share it. If any of our drivers or whatever see him, call 911. We're proactive, not reactive. We changed her schedule as an accommodation so he could not predict when she was on duty and not. Another example is another domestic violence, and this person came to work, and I sent her home.
Yeah.
She was so fearful of losing her job, and I'm like, that's the last thing you need to worry about right now. And then reminded her that if holding that person accountable as pressing charges, regardless of how you feel, regardless if you created it, and the only way I was able to advocate is because I had worn the same shoes. I'd been there. And I was like, no, you need to go home and rest. You need to process, compartmentalize, and come back better than ever. And I helped her file a police report against the man that harmed her. And she's still employed at the same company today.
That's great.
Because in HR, we do fix a lot of things, but we're really just advisors trying to hold upper management to frontline employees accountable with the policy and procedures. But in that, people roll. Sometimes they just want to sit in the chair.
Exactly.
They get it off, so they're safe behind the wheel of a truck. So they're outperforming others who don't have things going on in their life as such severe as this individual was. And it's been an honor to be able to be in that role and realize that I see people as people, not as a profit button, not a, oh, this person's missed 5 days in a row. Well, obviously there's a red flag there. For that, they were here every day. So because you didn't reach out to them and you were letting me know I'm reaching out to them, but no, we're not terming until I figure out what's going on. You know, and have we had to fire some people? Yeah, of course, because no matter what you're going through, communication is key. And those that did come forward and let me know, oh, this is what's going on, and I don't know how to manage it. I sit back and I listen to all of it, and I'm like, okay, so what do you think the first step should be? I feel like I need to do this. I agree. I agree. That's the starting point. I didn't go out and fix it. I didn't make them sweep it under the rug or avoid it. I allowed them to realize that, oh, there is a plan of action that needs to happen. And I don't think I would be that effective had I not endured the stuff that I did. And I think that makes me a great HR manager. And that ties to being safe, too. So the safety role is there as well. I have no qualms in my life to say, okay, what you just did was completely unsafe and preventable. So you need some either proper training or this role is not the right fit for you. And they're looking at, you said that so nicely. I thought, like, no, we're not here to term. We're here to keep you safe to go home to your family. So when you rush or you do a piss poor job, yes, that affects the company, but it also affects you to the point that you continue to do that. You could have a term just by simply not follow policy. But Midland has just opened their arms to me and my kids as far as career-wise and personal stuff. And I'm just really thankful that I see HR as a core role, not just someone helping with payroll or whatever. It's no longer just a job that I clock in and clock out for. It's my career. It's my reputation. I like the little wins. We got insurance down a couple of bucks for the employees.
Right.
That we offer a great 401k package so people who are starting younger, because we have 6 generations working right now, that they can already at 18, 19, 20 start investing in their retirement. I wish I had known that at that age.
Yes.
And so because I went through all of this, it's on my radar to make sure that our company has these policies in place or rewards and safety and stuff like that. So it keeps those people there and they want to be there. I love that I no longer drive to work. I don't want to be there. And HR and safety is a hard role to have. There's been times in my career I was like, just work at Taco Bell, push order, just simple tasks. But I think I get so much more out of life because I'm in HR. I see the human in human resources, and that name, right? Human resources, so humanity and resources, and that's what people are looking for. They're humility. But here's the resources that exist in the Permian Basin to get you back on your feet where you need to be. And I think I'm a great advocate in that regard for my employer who's like, do your thing, girl.
That's great.
But I do not miss my hometown.
You don't?
No, I do not.
You haven't gone back to visit?
I went back in late 2018 or so. 2019, my uncle passed away. Before that, my dad passed away. 9 months from each other, the exact same condition. I remember going back with my dad. I was so focused on that I didn't really reminisce about the town or seeing familiar faces. And I did it again when my uncle passed away. And I could have stayed a day or two later after that funeral, and I drove right back home because Midland's my home.
Yeah.
It's making a safe place for my kids. It's letting them thrive. It's me thriving in my career, my volunteer work versus being stuck in the mud in my hometown. I have a different lens for it now. It's what built me. But it's not where I needed to stay. I think people listening in need to realize that if you're not seen, heard, valued, or appreciated in any capacity in your current career, you don't have to put up with it.
Right.
You can say, toodles, that's what right at work is, at will employment is both ways. The employer can fire you for any reason, and you can quit for any reason.
So it's not like what the TV show is on Landman all the time?
So I just started watching that, and unfortunately, I've witnessed a few things in my career safety that it can be brutal, and there is brutality.
It is.
Of course, that is the Hollywood version of it. Something's happening almost every day. And so my HR hat, my safety was like, oh my God, this just happened the very next day. But it's not. They stretch it through. It's just you're just seeing that one episode. So they're trying to give you some drama involved in it, but the acting is pretty spot on when someone passes away because of a negligence and you're watching someone take their last breath. I've seen that happen. I've identified bodies. I've contacted next of kin.
Yeah.
And that's the part of safety you need to hurdle.
And I've had lots of experience with that, delivered numerous death messages and had one delivered on us because we're a Gold Star family. But that is probably, it drove me to work harder. Because when they say, well, you don't know what the real world is, that's when I kind of light up a little bit and say, let me tell you, bucko, you don't know the real world until you've delivered a death message.
Oh, yeah.
The guttural sound of a woman wailing is
You'll never forget it.
It just haunts you.
And then depending on the season of when it happens and knowing that those children are, and that spouse is a widow.
Yeah.
Or it can be Mel, the woman passed away. It's that they're missing a critical piece of their family unit. We lost a dedicated employee. And it sucks. You have to stay in the suck for a moment, and then you have to move forward. That family will be altered forever.
Yeah.
Period. So it's not accurate in the sense that all this is happening in one episode, but as far as the safety accidents happen, or pulling unit in trucks and accidents being on their cell phones, 18-wheeler colliding with another 18-wheeler, seen that, all of it. And it's always hard to compartmentalize in it that this was a complete preventable accident on our part or their part, and a fatality occurred. And so policy and procedure and training is no.
So do you remember how and when we met?
I do. So just like with podcasting and getting to know people and networking, even in the HR world, one person is a key part to introducing, and Christian introduced us, and we went to, I think it was Cork and the Pig lunch.
I keep calling it the pork and the pig. That's
Cork and Pig.
It's Cork and Pig.
That'd be awesome. But he told me that he had someone interested in starting his own podcast called West Texas Land. But the kicker is he's in his 70s and he's retired. And I was like, well, hallelujah. Way to go.
There's not a lot of us.
No.
This age.
And it's like, aren't you supposed to be enjoying your retirement? You want to take on doing a podcast? That might be the definition of insanity.
Okay. But the thing is I'm enamored with the people of West Texas. Mm-hmm. And I want to know their story, like yours, because it gives hope, it gives a message, and that's what we're all about in West Texas, because it's not the scenery that we have.
No, definitely not. It's the people.
It's the people. Because I keep telling people, they go, where's Midland or where's Odessa? I go, well, it's in West Texas. And they go,
El Paso.
They go, well, what's the scenery like? I keep telling them, you can stand on a paint can and watch your dog run away for 6 days because it is just flat.
It is very flat, and the wind can pick you up and fly you to the next city. Hailstorms, we get flooding around here. It's just so different from where I'm from. And I always giggle that they question where Mill and Odessa is, because we're thriving. We're huge between these two cities. I could see somebody not knowing on the map where, Wadsworth, Texas is, because there's like 500 people in there. But for someone that has 100,000, population, like 184 population just in Midland alone, and these out-of-towners don't know where it's on the map. Like, that's just mind-boggling. But then, back to 2018 when she said Midland, I had to pull the map.
Yep.
Okay. Oh, that's not bad. Yeah, I can do that. But the people here, ones that have been here for a very long time, or a board transplant, they're so welcoming. They do not judge that we're out of towners. High work ethic in this town. And so when you say you want to, in Amber, it's a love story that we have from Midland.
It is.
Because people are like, why don't you just move? I'm like, Midland has just been so appreciative that I exist in their city. And I want to give back in that regards to any way I can, because it matters. People here matter. What the community is doing matters. I'm so honored to be part of it. There's not a day that goes by that I am not grateful for living in Midland, Texas. We may not have the trees and whatnot,
Rivers or lakes.
but we have the most beautiful sunrises and sunsets.
Yes, we do.
So when I'm sitting on my front porch, self-reflecting and seeing this beautiful purple, orange, red sunset or sunrise, just in awe.
I am too.
Just in awe that I get to witness the hustle and bustle that we do. In 2020, I saw the industry of HR change and shift, and then I saw how employers went under.
Yes.
It's like now, after COVID, leadership teams see it's imperative to have an HR. It's a crucial part of the table that HR has a take for it, as a piece of that pie, instead of just being read into it after the fact. And I'm honored that everyone that I meet that does HR is fighting for that seat at the table.
Yes. Yes.
It's needed. Can't keep coming and telling HR to fix something when they're not aware at the beginning.
Yeah, and hearing after the fact is not helpful for
Anyone,
anything.
when their life's been pretty rocky. I won't look back on that. So I don't look back at my hometown, because I'm a new person. Whole life is completely new.
And everybody's got a story. And some people really don't try to find what's making them gin, or why they're acting the way they are, or reacting the way they are. They don't look, but HR is a wonderful profession in my eyes, because I've worked with a lot of high quality HR people in Midland and all this. And they look deeper and they look further, and they take all into consideration, whereas I'm not so sure that the metropolitan areas have that opportunity to do that, or that, I don't know. But that's just my take on it. Well, I thank you so much for coming. I thank you so much for helping me meander through and wade through the podcast, because to me, your story is incredible, and it's indeed an honor to have met you, and I just appreciate you so much.
I enjoy it, being a part of this, because it gets the word out. I think one of your questions that you sent me was, how is it looking at hiring in the Permian Basin?
Oh, I did, yes.
Yeah, and we're looking for the right person to fill the right seat. It's a risk to hold off on hiring, just be willy-nilly with it, because we need stuff done. But HR is critical in the vetting process, and finding different avenues to recruit, and figure out who can do what job. And we are a transient town, so people come and go. But there's quite still out there that are looking for their place, their home. And I encourage them, if they're looking for work and they're applying online, and there's all this talk about AI and all this. Well, if you can figure out who the company's employment, the employer is, so I would bypass sometimes the system and go straight to HR.
Yeah.
Send that resume there, send a cover letter, come by, shake hands, especially if you want to work for that company, because you know their mission. Working for my current employer, I was so honored when they offered me the job, because it's highly competitive out there. But their mission and motto is faith, family, and hard work.
That's us.
And in that order.
That's the West Texas.
Yeah. And I knew I found a potential job that I retire in.